what's up guys? It is time for our second lesson on Daniel. Now we started talking about Daniel last week, and if you remember, Daniel and his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were put in a training for 3 years to see if they would be handpicked by King Nebuchadnezzar to serve in his court. And even though they were learning all about the new country that they were living in, remember they live in Babylon now, and Nebuchadnezzar is the king, they still haven't forgot who they are, right? They wouldn't even eat the food from the king's table, remember? Because that went against the Hebrew laws. And so they just ate vegetables and water, and they were the top in that training, weren't they? And they eventually were picked by King Nebuchadnezzar to rule in his court. And now they have become very popular members of King Nebuchadnezzar's court. And now some time has passed, and King Nebuchadnezzar has had a dream that is bothering him. But instead of sending for Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he calls some of his wise men in the court that have been working for him for a really long time, and he tells them that he had this troubling dream and he doesn't know what it meant. Remember I told you that this story is going to be similar to Joseph in this way because it has a lot to do with dreams. So King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream that is bothering him, and not only does he want the wise men in his court to tell him what it means, he wants them to tell him what he dreamed. He's not even going to tell him the dream. He wants the wise men to tell him what he dreamed and what it means. Impossible, right? How would they know what he dreamed? And of course, that's what they tell him. They say, we can tell you what your dream means maybe, but we can't tell you what you dreamed. Only you know that. And this infuriates King Nebuchadnezzar. And he decides to put these men and all the wise men in his court to death. And so poor Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel, they don't even know that this has happened. And some guards come to take them away, to kill them. And of course, Daniel says, wait, what is going on? What's happened? And they tell Daniel and his friends what the king has asked of the wise men. And Daniel asks to go see King Nebuchadnezzar. So when Daniel goes to talk to King Nebuchadnezzar, the king tells him what he wants. And Daniel says, I can't do this, but my God can. Just give me some time and I will tell you what you dreamed and what it means. So Nebuchadnezzar gives him 1 day to come back to him with the dream. And so Daniel goes and tells Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he says, Nebuchadnezzar has given us 1 day to tell him the dream and what it means. And of course, they're kind of worried because it seems impossible, but Daniel says, we're going to have to ask God to help us. We're going to have to pray. We might have to pray all night. And I know that God can do this and show us what the dream was and what it meant. So that's what they do. The 4 men, they pray, and eventually God does reveal to them what Nebuchadnezzar dreamed. So Daniel goes back to the king the next day, and Daniel tells King Nebuchadnezzar, no man can do what you've asked, but God has shown me what your dream was. And then he starts telling King Nebuchadnezzar about the dream he had. He said, you dreamed about a huge statue, a statue that's head was made of gold, the shoulders were made of silver, and the legs were made of bronze and iron, and the feet were made of clay. And then you saw a huge rock strike the statue and knock it down. And King Nebuchadnezzar can't believe he's told him his dream. He says, yes, that's right. That's what I dreamed. But what does it mean? So Daniel tells him the head of gold stands for you and your kingdom. Other lesser kingdoms are going to follow, but after they fall, God will set up a new kingdom that will never be destroyed. And King Nebuchadnezzar is so impressed and amazed that Daniel was able to do this. He says, your God is the God above all others. And that's when Nebuchadnezzar makes Daniel the ruler over all of the wise men in Babylon, because Daniel had actually saved their lives. King Nebuchadnezzar was going to put all of them to death, and Daniel has now told him the dream and what it means. So he's saved all of them. So now Nebuchadnezzar has seen the power of the God that Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego serve, and he sees how powerful he is. So he wants Daniel to be the ruler over all the wise men. And the stories about Daniel are so cool because when things go wrong, Daniel always prays, doesn't he? Daniel was kind of an important man, and I'm assuming he probably had some money. He could have run away, couldn't he? He could have gotten scared and ran away, but instead he went straight to the king. He went straight to the problem, and he went home and he prayed about it because he trusted that God would help him. And he did. And now he is the ruler over all the wise men in Babylon. And I know that sometimes, especially when you're younger, maybe it's hard for you to know what to pray about or to think of things to pray about. So I'm going to quickly show you guys a little guide for praying that you can use with your hands. It's called the 5-finger prayer. So what you do is you hold your hands like this, kind of like prayer hands. You hold them like this, and what we're going to do is we're going to think of things to pray about using each finger. The first one we're going to do is our thumb. And when we hold our hands like this, Our thumb is really close to us, right? That's the closest one. What you need to remember about the thumb is to pray for the people that are closest to you. Your parents, maybe a sibling, maybe your best friend. That's what the thumb can help you remember. Pray for those who are closest to you. Next is these fingers right here, right? These are the pointer fingers. You point with these fingers. And so this finger is going to remind us to pray for those who point us in the right direction. Maybe a teacher, a grandparent, a coach, anyone that you have that helps point you in the right direction in your life. And now next we have these fingers right here. They're the tallest fingers, right? And so that's going to help us to remember to pray for our leaders. There are all sorts of leaders out there, right? We have the leaders here in our church. We have Scott and Ben and the elders and deacons. We can pray for them. The leader of schools are principals and superintendents. So anybody that's a leader in your life, that's what this tall finger is going to help us to remember to pray for. And next we have what is called the ring finger. See, I actually have a ring on that finger. This is our ring finger. And actually, when I'm trying to move it like this, I can move the rest of them really easy, but the ring finger is the weakest finger. And so that is going to help us to remember to pray for the weak. Praying for the weak can mean a lot of things. Maybe pray for people that you know that might be sick. Maybe pray for people who are poor or having a hard time in life right now. But that's what this finger is going to remind us. That's our weakest finger, so you can remember to pray for the weak. And then last, we have the pinky finger, the shortest finger, the last finger. And what I want you to remember with that finger is to pray for yourself last. Try to always pray for others first and pray for yourself last. So I hope that 5-finger prayer can help you guys if you are having trouble or something to pray about, or it's a good way to get started. You can just use your hands for a guide, right? You always have your hands and they can help you remember things to pray about. Thank you guys for watching these lessons on Daniel. He is a great person to look up to when it comes to praying, right? When Daniel is in trouble, he always goes to prayer first. And so I'm so thankful that we have him to learn about and to focus on in these lessons. And I will see you guys Sunday, either online or at church, for our next lesson on under construction, building ourselves into something new. And until then, I'll see you later. Bye.